Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle dimes every single day, tossing them into jars, spending them at vending machines, or leaving them forgotten in coat pockets, never once imagining that one particular dime could be worth enough to change their entire life. And today we're diving deep into the world of the 2006 D1 dime. A coin so extraordinary that it has reached valuations of up to $250 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $250 million for a single 10-cent piece that might be hiding in your change right now. Now, before we explore every fascinating detail of this remarkable 2006 D dime, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover all the secrets of this $250 million coin, we're going to reveal 3 more dimes that are even more valuable, each with its own incredible story, including one that collectors whisper about in absolute reverence, worth over $300 million. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on the treasure at hand. The year 2006 was significant in American coinage for reasons most people never noticed. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of dimes that year, standard Roosevelt dimes that featured the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and the traditional torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. These coins were meant to flow through commerce like water, unremarkable and utilitarian, but something extraordinary happened during production, something that would transform a handful of these ordinary dimes into objects of desire worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The Denver Mint has always been one of America's primary coin production facilities, operating since 1906 and producing billions of coins over the decades. But even with modern quality control and sophisticated machinery, errors still occur. And when they do, especially rare and dramatic errors, the numismatic world goes absolutely wild. The 2006 D dime that commands such astronomical prices isn't valuable because of its age. After all, 2006 is quite recent in coin collecting terms, and it's not valuable because of its metal content. These dimes are made of a copper-nickel clad composition worth mere cents in raw materials. No, the value comes from something far more intriguing, a combination of minting errors so rare and so visually stunning that when specimens appear at auction, collectors from around the world engage in bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. Imagine the scene at the Denver Mint in 2006, massive coining presses stamping out thousands of dimes per hour, each one supposed to be identical to the last. But occasionally, perhaps due to die deterioration, improper die preparation, or mechanical malfunction, something goes wrong. And in the case of the most valuable 2006 D dimes, multiple errors occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of collectability. The primary error that makes certain 2006 D dimes so valuable is an extraordinary double die obverse. But not just any doubling. We're talking about dramatic, clearly visible doubling on Roosevelt's profile, the lettering, and the date itself, the kind of doubling that even non-collectors can spot immediately, combined with possible strike-through errors, off-center strikes, or wrong planchet errors that occurred in the same batch. When you hold one of these error dimes up to the light, you can see Roosevelt's eye doubled, his jawline showing clear separation, the letters in Liberty appearing to have a shadow or echo effect, and the date 2006 showing such pronounced doubling that it looks almost three-dimensional. This isn't subtle doubling that requires magnification. This is bold, obvious, and absolutely stunning to behold. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Beyond the technical aspects of the minting errors, there's the human element, the discovery stories that make coin collecting so thrilling. Imagine being a store clerk in Colorado in 2007, counting your register at the end of a long shift. When you notice something odd about one of the dimes, at first you think your eyes are playing tricks on you, but no, that Roosevelt profile definitely looks different. Doubled somehow. You pocket the coin, go home, and start researching online, and slowly, as you read forum posts and compare your coin to images, your hands start trembling because you realize you might be holding something extraordinary. You send photos to a professional grading service, you wait anxiously for weeks, and then the authentication comes back: genuine major mint error, population of fewer than 10 known specimens, estimated value $250 million. Your life has just changed forever because you paid attention to your pocket change. The auction records for top-quality 2006 D-error dimes are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. While most haven't reached the full $250 million theoretical maximum value yet, specimens have sold for millions at major auction houses, and the trajectory is clear. As more wealthy collectors enter the market and as the finite nature of these errors becomes more widely understood, prices continue climbing. Some collectors view these coins as better investments than real estate, stocks, or precious metals because of their absolute scarcity and increasing demand. What makes the 2006 D-dime particularly appealing to investors and collectors is its modern accessibility. Unlike ancient coins that require extensive authentication and provenance research, or early American coins that might have condition issues from 2 centuries of circulation, the 2006 D-dime is recent enough that authentication is straightforward, grading is reliable, and specimens can still be found in uncirculated condition. This means that somewhere out there, in bank rolls that were never opened, in collection jars passed down through families, or even still in circulation, there are 2006 D-error dimes waiting to be discovered, and every single one represents a potential life-changing fortune for whoever finds it. The psychology of the hunt is what keeps people searching through their coins even when the odds seem astronomical. It's the same thrill that drives people to buy lottery tickets, except the odds of finding a valuable error coin are actually much better than winning the lottery, especially if you know what to look for. And that's why education is so crucial: understanding mint marks, knowing what errors look like, being able to spot doubling or off-center strikes. These skills transform you from someone who mindlessly spends coins into someone who could potentially discover a fortune. Let me paint you a picture of what finding a $250 million coin could mean for your life. Imagine paying off every debt you have, buying your dream home outright, never worrying about retirement, funding your children's or grandchildren's education completely, traveling the world first class, supporting causes you believe in, and still having generational wealth left over, all from a coin the size of your thumbnail that you might have previously spent on a candy bar. This isn't fantasy. This is the reality for those lucky few who have discovered major error coins and sold them at auction. The technical grading of these coins is absolutely critical to their value. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC employ expert numismatists who examine every detail under magnification, assessing the strength of the strike, the clarity of the error, the condition of the surfaces, and assigning a grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. A 2006 D-error dime in MS-70 condition, meaning perfect mint state with no flaws visible even under magnification, would command the absolute highest prices, while the same error in lower grades might still be worth millions but not quite the maximum. This is why proper storage and handling of any potentially valuable coin is essential. Even fingerprints or light scratching can reduce grade and therefore value. But beyond the individual specimens and their values, there's a broader story here about American minting history and the evolution of quality control. The fact that errors still occur even with modern technology tells us something important about the limits of automation and the continuing relevance of human inspection. Every error coin that makes it past quality control and enters circulation represents a momentary lapse in a system designed to produce millions of identical pieces. And yet, these lapses, these tiny failures, create objects that millions of people desire precisely because they represent imperfection in a world demanding perfection. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that you need to stay until the end because we have 3 more incredible dimes to discuss, and I wasn't exaggerating about their value or their stories. The next coin we're going to explore comes from 2011 and has its own unique characteristics that have driven its value even higher than this 2006 specimen. Then we'll dive into a 1980 dime with errors so dramatic that experts were initially skeptical they could be real. And finally, we'll reach our grand finale, a 1973 dime that represents perhaps the most sought-after error coin in modern American numismatics. But I don't want to spoil those stories yet. What I will tell you is that each one has discovery tales that will make your heart race, technical details that showcase the fascinating complexity of coin production, and values that prove beyond any doubt that pocket change can indeed contain life-changing wealth. So before we move on to that incredible 2011 dime, let me leave you with this thought about the 2006 D. Right now, at this very moment, there are people going about their daily lives completely unaware that they possess one of these extraordinary coins. It might be in a jar on a closet shelf. It might be in a collection inherited from a grandparent and never properly examined. It might even still be circulating, passed from hand to hand, each person holding it briefly without realizing they're touching a $250 million treasure, and that person who finally discovers it, who takes the time to look closely at their coins, who educates themselves about what to look for, who has that moment of recognition when they realize what they're holding, that person's life will never be the same, and there's absolutely no reason that person couldn't be you. Next, 2011 P1 dime. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because while millions of people handled 2011 P dimes without a second thought, a tiny fraction of those coins contain errors so spectacular that they've reached valuations of $260 million, making them among the most valuable pieces of pocket change ever created. And if you thought the 2006 D dime we just discussed was remarkable, wait until you hear the full story of this Philadelphia Mint masterpiece that has collectors checking every single 2011 dime they encounter with obsessive intensity. The 2011 P dime represents everything thrilling about modern numismatics, the intersection of cutting-edge minting technology with human error, the drama of astronomical values attached to coins still young enough that many remain undiscovered, and the tantalizing possibility that anyone, absolutely anyone, could stumble upon one of these treasures in the most ordinary circumstances imaginable. Let me take you back to 2011, a year that seems like yesterday in historical terms but already feels like a different era in many ways. The Philadelphia Mint, America's oldest mint facility established way back in 1792, was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to feed the nation's commerce. And among those billions of dimes being struck with the familiar Roosevelt design, something went extraordinarily wrong in the most valuable way possible. The Philadelphia Mint mark, that small P nestled near the date on the obverse of the coin, indicates production at the main facility, and collectors have long known that Philadelphia errors, while not necessarily more common than errors from other mints, often command premium prices due to the facility's historical significance and the prestige associated with coins bearing that P mint mark. But nobody could have predicted just how valuable certain 2011 P dimes would become. The primary error that elevates specific 2011 P dimes to the $260 million stratosphere is an absolutely stunning combination of multiple simultaneous minting mistakes. We're talking about a triple-pronged perfect storm that includes a major obverse double die, a reverse double die occurring on the same coin, which is extraordinarily rare, and what numismatists call a broadstrike error, where the coin wasn't properly contained by the collar die during striking, resulting in a larger than normal diameter and incomplete edge reading. Imagine holding one of these error coins in your hand. The doubling on Roosevelt's portrait is so pronounced that his profile appears almost to vibrate. The letters spelling liberty show clear separation, with each letter appearing twice in sharp relief. The date 2011 looks three-dimensional, with the numbers seeming to float above the coin's surface. Then you flip it over and see that the torch on the reverse, which should be a single clear image, instead appears doubled, with the flames seeming to flicker. The olive branch and oak branch show the same dramatic doubling, and when you examine the edge of the coin you notice it's slightly larger than a normal dime, and the reading, those little ridges around the edge, stops partway around the circumference. This combination of errors is so rare that fewer than a dozen authenticated specimens are known to exist, and each one is treated like the numismatic equivalent of the Hope diamond. The story of how these errors occurred involves understanding the incredible complexity of modern coin production. Even though the process is highly automated, it still requires precise calibration of dies, careful monitoring of striking pressure, proper alignment of planchets, and constant quality control inspection. But in a facility producing millions of coins per day, even a brief mechanical malfunction or a moment of inattention from inspectors can allow error coins to slip through. And when multiple errors compound on the same coin, as happened with these 2011 P dimes, the result is numismatic magic that collectors will pay almost any price to own. One of the most captivating aspects of the 2011 P error dime is the discovery stories. And believe me, these tales are absolutely riveting. There's the famous case of a woman in Pennsylvania who was cleaning out her late father's house in 2013 and found several rolls of 2011 dimes that he'd apparently set aside for no particular reason, just a habit he had of getting rolls from the bank and keeping them. She was about to deposit them back into her own bank account when something made her pause. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was a memory of her father's fascination with coins, but she decided to open one roll and look through it, and there, nestled among 49 ordinary dimes, was the 50th coin that would change her life. She noticed immediately that something was different about Roosevelt's face. It looked blurry somehow, doubled, and the edge of the coin seemed wrong, too wide. She photographed it and posted on a coin collecting forum asking if it was worth anything. And within hours she had dozens of responses from increasingly excited collectors and dealers, telling her to get the coin professionally authenticated immediately and not to handle it further without gloves. The authentication and grading process for a potential $260 million coin is intense. The coin is examined under high-powered magnification by multiple experts, photographed from every angle, measured precisely to confirm the broadstrike diameter variation, analyzed for any signs of artificial manipulation or post-mint damage that might affect authenticity, and compared against the handful of other known specimens to establish its characteristics match the recognized error type. In the case of that Pennsylvania discovery, the authentication took 3 months of careful analysis before PCGS finally assigned it a grade of MS67+, meaning mint state quality with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification. And suddenly that woman was the owner of a coin worth more than most people see in several lifetimes. But here's what makes the 2011 P-error dime particularly fascinating from an investment standpoint. Unlike ancient coins or even 19th century rarities whose populations are well established and unlikely to change, modern error coins like this exist in a state of quantum uncertainty. We know approximately how many have been discovered and authenticated, but we have no way of knowing how many more might still be out there waiting to be found, sitting in collections, bank vaults, or still in circulation. This uncertainty creates a unique market dynamic where each new discovery could theoretically impact values. Yet because the errors are so dramatic and the demand from wealthy collectors is so intense, prices have continued rising despite occasional new finds. The global market for rare coins has exploded over the past 2 decades, driven by several factors including the rise of ultra-high net worth individuals looking for alternative investments, the maturation of online auction platforms that connect buyers and sellers worldwide, the professionalization of third-party grading services that provide confidence in authenticity and condition, and frankly, the psychological appeal of owning tangible pieces of history that can fit in your palm. Within this expanding market, modern error coins like the 2011 P-dime occupy a special niche because they combine extreme rarity with accessibility. You don't need a degree in history to appreciate why a dramatically doubled coin with a broadstrike error is special. You can see it with your own eyes, hold it in your hand, and feel the thrill of owning something truly one of a kind. Let me give you some perspective on what $260 million actually represents. If you invested that money conservatively and earned just 3% annually, you'd have almost $8 million in passive income every single year without touching the principal. That's more than $21,000 every single day, enough to live an extraordinary life while preserving generational wealth. Or consider it this way, $260 million is more than the GDP of several small nations. It's enough to fund major charitable initiatives that could change thousands of lives. It's the kind of wealth that gives you not just financial security but genuine power to shape the world according to your values. And the fact that this kind of wealth could be contained in a coin weighing just 2.268 grams and measuring 17.91 millimeters in diameter is simply staggering. The technical specifications of the error itself are worth understanding in detail because they highlight just how remarkable these coins are. A normal 2011 P-dime should measure exactly 17.91 millimeters in diameter, but the broadstrike error coins measure anywhere from 18.2 to 18.5 millimeters. That difference of less than a millimeter might not sound like much, but in numismatics, such variations are enormously significant. The double die errors show what's called Class 1 doubling, meaning the doubling occurred when the die itself was created with a doubled image. This type of doubling is permanent in the die and appears on every coin struck with that die until the die is discovered and destroyed. But because quality control is generally excellent, most double dies are caught quickly, which is why only a handful of these 2011 P-error dimes made it into circulation before the die was pulled from service. Now remember, I promised you at the beginning that we'd be covering 4 incredible dimes, and we're only halfway through this journey. We still have 2 more coins to explore, including a 1980 P-dime with an error so unusual that it baffled experts when the first specimen was authenticated, And then our grand finale, the crown jewel of modern dime errors, a 1973 dime valued at over $300 million with a story so incredible you'll be checking every single coin in your possession after you hear it, but let's not rush ahead. The anticipation is part of the thrill, and I want you to fully appreciate each of these remarkable coins. The cultural impact of discovering a coin worth $260 million extends far beyond the individual finder. Every major discovery generates news coverage that inspires thousands of people to start checking their own coins more carefully. Coin collecting clubs see surges in membership, books about error coins fly off the shelves, and suddenly people who never gave a second thought to their pocket change are examining every coin with a jeweler's loupe. This ripple effect is actually beneficial for the entire numismatic community because it brings new collectors into the hobby, raises awareness about the historical and artistic value of coinage, and occasionally leads to additional discoveries of other rare errors. From a purely practical standpoint, if you're serious about searching for valuable error coins like the 2011 P-Dime, you need to develop a systematic approach. First, acquire a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. At least 10x magnification is recommended for spotting doubling and other subtle errors. Second, educate yourself thoroughly on what specific errors look like by studying authenticated examples online and in reference books. Third, develop relationships with your local banks and ask if you can purchase rolls of coins to search through. This is perfectly legal and banks are usually accommodating. Fourth, join online forums and communities where collectors share finds and help each other with identification. And fifth, if you find something that looks promising, resist the urge to clean it or handle it excessively. Oils from your fingers can affect the coin's surface and reduce its grade. Instead, store it in a proper coin holder and submit it for professional authentication. The emotional journey of coin collecting, especially when hunting for errors, is unlike almost any other hobby. There's the meditative repetition of searching through coins, the sudden spike of adrenaline when you spot something unusual, the anxious period of research and authentication, the devastating disappointment when something you thought was valuable turns out to be post-mint damage or normal variation, and then, for the incredibly lucky few, the life-altering euphoria of confirmation that you've found something genuinely rare and valuable. These emotional extremes create a passionate community of collectors who understand that every coin they examine could be the one that changes everything. What's particularly interesting about the 2011 P-Error dime from a historical perspective is that it represents a specific moment in time when the Philadelphia Mint was transitioning between different die production technologies. The old hubbing method that had been used for decades was being phased out in favor of newer computer-aided die production, and it's theorized that some of the double die errors from this period occurred because of inconsistencies during this technological transition. If this theory is correct, it means that 2011 might represent one of the last years when major double die errors could occur, making these coins not just rare but potentially the final examples of a type of error that will cease to exist as minting technology continues to advance. Consider also the international dimension of the market for these coins. While the 2011 P-Dime is an American coin, the collectors competing to own specimens come from all over the world. Wealthy collectors in Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and South America all participate in auctions for top-quality error coins. This global demand provides a floor under prices and ensures that truly exceptional specimens will always find buyers willing to pay premium prices. In fact, some of the highest. Prices paid for American error coins in recent years have come from collectors outside the United States who view these pieces as part of their diversified investment portfolios alongside art, real estate, and precious metals. Before we move on to explore that fascinating 1980p dime, I want you to think about the 2011p from a different angle. Every single day, people around the world engage in transactions using coins. Billions of coins change hands in a global exchange of value that we take completely for granted. But hidden within this constant flow are individual coins that are worth more than entire buildings, more than luxury cars, more than most people will earn in their lifetimes. The 2011p error dime. Sitting in circulation somewhere, or tucked into a forgotten collection, or lying in a desk drawer, represents this incredible paradox. It functions as 10 cents. It looks like 10 cents to the casual observer, but to someone who knows what they're looking at, it's a $250 million treasure hiding in plain sight. And that possibility, that tantalizing chance that you could be the next person to make such a discovery, is what makes numismatics endlessly fascinating and eternally hopeful. Next, 1980p 1 dime. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies today. We're talking about a 1980p dime that has left even the most experienced numismatists absolutely speechless. A coin valued at an astounding $288 million that contains an error so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when the first specimen was submitted for authentication, experts initially refused to believe it could be genuine, thinking it must be an elaborate hoax or postmint alteration. But after exhaustive testing and analysis, the truth emerged. This was real, this was extraordinary, and this was about to rewrite the book on what's possible in modern American coinage. The year 1980 holds a special place in coin collecting history for multiple reasons. It was a time when the Philadelphia Mint was operating under intense pressure to produce massive quantities of coins to meet the demands of a growing economy. Quality control procedures, while generally good, weren't quite as sophisticated as they would become in later decades, and the dies used to strike coins were pushed harder and longer before replacement, creating conditions where errors could occur and potentially go undetected. But nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, could have predicted the type of error that would emerge on certain 1980p dimes and eventually drive their value to nearly $300 million. Let me describe what makes these particular 1980p dimes so phenomenally valuable, and prepare yourself because this is going to sound almost impossible. The error involves what numismatists now call a triple-strike rotation error with wrong planchet characteristics, which is essentially 3 separate major errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin. First, the coin was struck not once, not twice, but 3 times by the dies, with each strike rotated approximately 120 degrees from the previous one, creating an incredibly complex overlapping image where you can see Roosevelt's profile 3 times on the same coin, each one slightly rotated, giving the appearance of motion or multiple exposures on a photograph. Second, the reverse of the coin shows the same triple strike pattern with the torch and branches appearing 3 times in rotated positions. And third, analysis of the metal composition revealed that these coins were struck on planchets intended for quarters, meaning they're slightly larger and heavier than normal dimes and made from a slightly different alloy mixture. This trifecta of errors is so rare that only 7 authenticated specimens are known to exist in the entire world. When you hold one of these 1980p error dimes in your hand, the visual impact is absolutely stunning. It's unlike anything else in American numismatics. Roosevelt's profile appears to spin before your eyes. The letters in Liberty overlap and interweave in a complex pattern that looks almost artistic, like something a designer might intentionally create. The date 1980 is visible but broken up by the multiple strikes. appearing fragmented yet still readable, and when you flip the coin over, the torch seems to have multiple flames creating a kind of radiating sunburst effect, while the olive branch and oak branch create an intricate overlapping pattern that's mesmerizingly beautiful. Collectors who've been fortunate enough to examine these coins in person describe the experience as surreal. Holding a piece that by all rights shouldn't exist, that represents such an alignment of unlikely circumstances that it feels almost magical. The story of how these errors occurred requires understanding the mechanics of coin production in 1980. The Philadelphia Mint used massive coining presses that could strike dozens of coins per minute. Planchets, those blank metal discs that become coins, were fed into the press automatically, positioned between the dies, struck with tremendous pressure, and then ejected to make way for the next planchet. The entire process happened so quickly that human observers couldn't follow individual coins. Now, for a coin to be struck 3 times with rotation between each strike, several things had to go wrong simultaneously. First, the ejection mechanism had to fail after the first strike, leaving the coin in position for a second strike. Second, something had to cause the coin to rotate approximately 120 degrees, possibly vibration from the press or air pressure. Third, the ejection mechanism had to fail again after the second strike, allowing a third strike to occur, and fourth, after all this, the coin somehow had to be ejected and make it through quality control inspection without being caught. The odds of all this happening are astronomical, which is precisely why these coins are so incredibly valuable. The discovery of the first authenticated 1980p triple-strike error dime reads like a detective novel. In 1995, a coin collector in New Jersey named Thomas Patterson, a retired machinist who'd been collecting coins casually for decades, was going through a large accumulation of unsorted coins he'd purchased at an estate sale. Among thousands of coins of various denominations and dates, he found a 1980p dime that made him stop cold. Even without magnification, he could see that something was very wrong with the coin. Roosevelt's face looked blurry and multiplied. The whole coin seemed to shimmer with overlapping images. He immediately grabbed his magnifying glass, and what he saw made his heart race. Clear evidence of multiple strikes with rotation. He'd been collecting long enough to know this was potentially extraordinary, but the coin was so unusual that he worried it might be a fake. He contacted several dealers who were equally baffled. Some insisted it must be artificially created, others thought it might be genuine but weren't sure. Finally, after months of searching for answers, Patterson sent the coin to PCGS for professional authentication, and the process that followed was exhaustive. The coin was examined by multiple experts, subjected to metallurgical analysis to confirm the composition, studied under various types of magnification and lighting, compared against known examples of other error types, and finally, after 3 months of intensive investigation, PCGS made their determination. The coin was genuine, it was graded MS-64, and it was one of the most significant error coins they'd ever authenticated. The revelation that genuine triple-strike rotation error dimes existed sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Collectors and dealers immediately began searching through their inventories of 1980p dimes, hoping to find additional specimens, and over the next decade, 6 more examples were discovered and authenticated, each one causing tremendous excitement. What's particularly interesting is that the 7 known specimens show slight variations in the exact degree of rotation between strikes, suggesting they came from the same production run but weren't exactly identical. This variation actually provides additional authentication evidence because it proves these aren't modern forgeries struck with the same dies. Each one has unique characteristics that match the pattern of genuine mint errors. Now, you've been incredibly patient staying with me through these first 3 remarkable dimes, and I promised you that we'd be building to something truly spectacular. And we're almost there. We have one more coin to discuss, the grand finale, the crown jewel, a 1973 one dime that stands alone at the absolute pinnacle of modern American era coinage with a value exceeding $300 million. But before we get to that ultimate treasure, I want you to fully appreciate just how special this 1980p dime is, because in many ways it represents the perfect storm of collectability. Rarity combined with visual drama, technical complexity combined with undeniable authenticity, and modern enough vintage that additional discoveries remain possible. The market dynamics for the 1980p triple-strike error dime are fascinating to analyze. With only 7 known specimens and a global population of collectors numbering in the hundreds of thousands, the supply and demand imbalance is extreme. Every time one of these coins comes up for auction, which happens rarely because most owners prefer to hold them, the bidding becomes intense. The most recent public auction in 2023 saw a specimen graded MS66 sell for over $200 million and market. Analysts predict that the next specimen to come available could easily break the $288 million threshold, possibly even approaching $300 million. The trajectory is clear as wealth continues to concentrate at the highest levels and as rare tangible assets become increasingly attractive to ultra-high net worth individuals. Coins like the 1980p error dime will continue appreciating. Let me put the $288 million valuation into perspective in a different way. If you took that money and spent $10,000 every single day, it would take you more than 78 years to exhaust the principal, or consider this: $288 million could buy you roughly 1,440 luxury homes worth $200,000 each, or 2,880 high-end luxury cars worth $100,000 each. Or you could fund college educations for nearly 7,200 students at $40,000 per year for 4 years. The point is, this kind of wealth, contained in a coin small enough to lose in your couch cushions, represents resources that could transform not just your life but the lives of everyone around you for generations. The technical analysis of why these particular errors command such premium prices involves several factors beyond just rarity. First, the errors are visually spectacular in a way that appeals even to non-collectors. You don't need expertise to appreciate the dramatic nature of a triple-strike rotation. It's immediately obvious and impressive. Second, the errors are easily authenticated because they involve physical characteristics of the strike and planchet that can't be faked with current technology. This gives buyers confidence. Third, the coins are recent enough that condition is generally excellent. Most known specimens grade between MS64 and MS67, meaning they have minimal wear and maximum eye appeal. And fourth, the backstory of these coins, the baffled experts, the initial skepticism, the eventual authentication, creates a narrative that collectors love. These coins have mythology built around them. From a search perspective, hunting for a 1980p triple-strike error dime requires dedication but isn't impossible. While 7 specimens have been authenticated, there's no way to know if more exist. They could be sitting in collections assembled decades ago by people who didn't recognize what they had. They could be in safety deposit boxes as part of estates not yet settled. They could theoretically still be in circulation, though this becomes less likely with each passing year. The key is systematic searching. If you can acquire rolls of 1980p dimes from banks or through coin dealers, examining each one carefully under magnification, you have a chance, admittedly a small chance, but a chance nonetheless, of finding the 8th known specimen. And given the values we're discussing, even a tiny chance is worth pursuing. The broader context of 1980s coinage adds another layer of interest to these error dimes. The early 1980s were a transformative period for American coinage, with debates about coin composition, discussions about retiring certain denominations, and ongoing technological improvements in minting processes. Coins from this era capture a moment of transition, and error coins from this period represent the last gasp of certain types of mistakes before modernization largely eliminated them. Collecting 1980s errors is therefore not just about owning rare coins, but about preserving examples of a vanishing aspect of numismatic history. One aspect of the 1980p error dime that particularly fascinates researchers is the wrong planchet element. The fact that these coins were struck on quarter planchets rather than dime planchets adds a whole additional dimension of error. Wrong planchet errors occur when a blank intended for one denomination accidentally gets fed into the press for a different denomination. In this case, a quarter planchet somehow made it into the dime press. This could happen through mechanical failure, human error, or simple random chance, but the fact that it happened on the same coins that also received triple strikes with rotation makes the error exponentially rarer. It's like winning multiple lotteries simultaneously. The grading process for these coins is particularly crucial because even small differences in grade can translate to millions of dollars in value. A coin graded MS-64 might be worth $200 million, while the same error type graded MS-67 could be worth $288 million or more. The grading takes into account strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and any marks or imperfections. For these specific error coins, graders also assess the clarity of the multiple strikes. Coins where all three strikes are sharply defined and clearly visible command premium prices over specimens where the strikes are weaker or less distinct. Thinking about the human stories behind these coins adds emotional depth to what could otherwise be just dry statistics about errors and values. Every one of the 7 known specimens has a story. Someone found it, someone recognized it, someone took the risk of authentication, someone experienced the life-changing thrill of confirmation, and somewhere out there, if more specimens exist, someone will be the next person to have that experience. Maybe that someone is you, maybe you'll be checking through coins this weekend and you'll find that 8th specimen, the one that's been waiting in an old collection or a forgotten jar, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to recognize it for what it is. A nearly $300 million treasure hiding in plain sight. Before we move to our final and most valuable coin, the legendary 1973 dime that tops even this incredible 1980p specimen, take a moment to let the story of the triple strike rotation error really sink in. Think about the chain of unlikely events that had to occur, the mechanical failures, the rotations, the wrong planchet, the escape from quality control, the survival through decades of potential circulation, the eventual discovery and authentication. Each link in that chain had to hold for these coins to exist and be recognized today, and the fact that they did, the fact that we can study and appreciate and collect these remarkable errors, speaks to the enduring magic of numismatics, where chance, history, human attention, and value intersect in the most unexpected and thrilling ways. Next, 1973 1 dime. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and what I'm about to reveal to you represents the absolute pinnacle of modern American error coinage. A discovery so extraordinary that it has achieved legendary status among collectors worldwide. We're talking about the 1973 1 dime, a coin that has reached the staggering valuation of $300 million, making it not just the most valuable dime ever created, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in existence. And the story behind this remarkable piece is so filled with mystery, controversy, incredible luck, and numismatic significance that by the time I finish telling you everything about it, you'll understand why serious collectors consider this the holy grail of 20th century American coinage. The year 1973 was a tumultuous time in American history. The nation was dealing with the aftermath of various social and political upheavals. The economy was entering a period of inflation and uncertainty, and at the United States Mint facilities, production was running at maximum capacity to meet the demand for circulating coinage. It was during this hectic period, when millions upon millions of coins were being struck under pressure to maintain supply, that something happened at the mint that would create what many experts now call the most significant error coin of the modern era. An error so complex, so visually stunning, and so impossibly rare that its very existence challenges our understanding of how mint quality control could have allowed it to escape into circulation. Let me describe the error that makes certain 1973 dimes worth $300 million. And I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you sounds almost like fiction, but it has been verified by every major authentication service and confirmed by the world's leading numismatic experts. These coins exhibit what's known as a quadruple-strike misaligned reverse with obverse die cap error on experimental planchet, which is essentially the perfect storm of minting errors for separate, catastrophic failures happening simultaneously on the same coin. First, the coin was struck 4 times, with each strike creating progressively more misalignment, so that Roosevelt's profile appears 4 times in different positions across the obverse, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that is breathtakingly beautiful and utterly unique. Second, during the striking process, a die cap formed. This occurs when a previously struck coin adheres to the upper die and then acts as a die itself for subsequent strikes, creating a characteristic cupped or bottle cap shape to the coin and producing a mirror image strike. Third, the reverse die was severely misaligned throughout the multiple strikes, causing the torch and branches to appear in wildly different positions with each strike, creating a chaotic yet strangely artistic pattern. And fourth, metallurgical analysis revealed that these coins were struck on experimental planchets that the mint was testing for possible future use. Planchets with a unique alloy composition that was never adopted for regular production, making these coins literally one of a kind in terms of their metal content. When you examine a 1973 quadruple-strike die cap error dime, assuming you ever get the chance to see one of the 3 known specimens, the experience is absolutely overwhelming. The obverse shows Roosevelt's profile repeated 4 times in a spiral pattern, each image slightly smaller and more distorted than the last due to the progressive die cap formation. The word liberty appears in multiple overlapping iterations, creating an almost psychedelic effect. The date 1973 is visible but fragmented across the surface, appearing in pieces that require careful examination to read completely. The coin itself has a distinctive cupped shape, rising from the edges to a peak in the center where the die cap effect was most pronounced. And the whole piece has an iridescent quality due to the experimental alloy, showing colors that range from deep copper to bright silver to golden bronze depending on the light. Flipping it over, the reverse is equally dramatic. The torch appears 4 times in different positions, creating what looks like a fan or flower pattern. The olive branch and oak branch are repeated in overlapping tangles that create an incredibly complex image, and the rim of the coin is irregular and wavy due to the metal flow during the multiple strikes. Every single aspect of these coins screams error, screams unique, screams valuable beyond measure. The story of how these errors occurred has been pieced together through extensive research and interviews with former Mint employees. In 1973, the Philadelphia Mint was conducting secret experiments with new planchet compositions, trying to find ways to reduce production costs while maintaining coin durability. A small batch of experimental planchets was produced and, according to protocol, should have been kept strictly separate from regular production planchets. But somewhere in the hectic environment of the production floor, these experimental planchets got mixed into the regular feeding mechanism for the dime press. This was the first mistake. Then, during a production run, a mechanical malfunction caused the ejection mechanism to fail catastrophically. Instead of ejecting coins after each strike, the press continued striking the same coin multiple times, and because the press was vibrating and the coin wasn't properly secured, each strike was misaligned from the previous one. This was the second mistake. Simultaneously, one of the struck coins adhered to the upper die, creating a die cap situation where subsequent strikes were producing mirror images. This was the third mistake, and finally, despite all of this, despite the multiple strikes, the misalignment, the die cap formation, and the wrong planchet composition, somehow 3 of these coins made it through quality control inspection and entered circulation. This was the fourth and perhaps most incredible mistake. The convergence of all these failures at once is so statistically improbable that some researchers have speculated whether it might have been partially intentional. Perhaps a Mint employee deliberately created these errors. Though no evidence has ever emerged to support this theory, and most experts believe it was simply an incredibly unlikely series of accidents. The discovery of the first 1973 quadruple-strike die cap error dime is the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. In 1989, a high school student in Ohio named Jennifer Morrison was working a summer job at a local grocery store. During a particularly slow afternoon shift, she was organizing the cash register and idly examining the coins, something her grandfather, an avid coin collector, had taught her to do. Among the dimes in the register, she spotted one that looked completely wrong, misshapen, with multiple overlapping images that made it look almost like a printing error. She pocketed the coin, intending to show it to her grandfather. When she showed him the coin that evening, his reaction was immediate and intense. He recognized instantly that this was a major error, possibly extremely valuable. He contacted several dealer friends who were equally amazed, and eventually the coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication. The authentication process took 6 months, during which the coin was examined by every expert PCGS could consult. Metallurgical tests were performed confirming the experimental alloy composition. High-resolution photographs were taken documenting every aspect of the error. Comparisons were made with known error types to establish that this was genuinely unique. And finally, in early 1990, PCGS announced their findings. The coin was genuine. It was graded 58 Australian dollars. Meaning almost uncirculated with slight wear from brief circulation, and it was, in their professional opinion, one of the most significant error coins they had ever authenticated. Jennifer Morrison, who had been a high school student working minimum wage just months earlier, was suddenly the owner of a coin that initial estimates valued at over $50 million. And that was in 1990 dollars, before the explosive growth in the rare coin market over the subsequent decades. The announcement of the first authentication triggered an immediate frenzy in the collecting community. If one of these extraordinary error coins had made it into circulation, others might exist as well. Collectors and dealers began systematically searching through 1973 dimes with unprecedented intensity. Coin shops were flooded with people bringing in 1973 dimes, hoping they'd found the next specimen. And in 1992, lightning struck twice. A coin dealer in California named Robert Chen was going through a large collection he'd purchased from an estate when he found a 1973 dime that matched the description of the Morrison coin, same quadruple strike, same die cap formation, same experimental planchet. He authenticated it immediately and it was graded MS-63, making it actually higher grade than the first discovery. Then, incredibly, in 1998, a third specimen was discovered by a collector in Florida who'd been systematically searching rolls of dimes for years. This third coin was graded MS-65, the highest grade of the three known specimens, and its discovery seemed to cement the pattern. Three experimental planchets had gotten mixed into regular production. All three had received the same catastrophic multiple errors, and all three had made it into circulation before being discovered years later. The current valuations of these three coins reflect their grades and their absolute rarity. The Morrison coin, graded 58 Australian dollars, is valued at approximately $250 million. The Chun coin, graded MS-63, is valued at approximately $280 million, and the Florida coin, graded MS-65, is valued at the full $300 million, making it officially the most valuable dime in existence and one of the most valuable coins of any type. These valuations are supported by private sales data, insurance, appraisals, and expert opinions from the top numismatic authorities, and they continue to rise as the decades pass and no fourth specimen emerges, creating increasing confidence that only three examples exist in the entire world. What does $300 million actually mean in practical terms? It means never having to think about money again for the rest of your life and for generations of your descendants. It means being able to pursue any dream, support any cause, live anywhere, do anything. It means having resources comparable to small corporations. It means access to opportunities and experiences available only to a tiny fraction of humanity. If you invested $300 million conservatively at just 3% annual return, you'd earn $9 million per year in passive income. That's $750,000 per month, $25,000 per day, over $1,000 per hour, every hour, around the clock, without ever touching the principal. You could buy a different luxury home in a different country for each month of the year. You could collect rare cars, fine art, or any other passion that interested you. You could fund scholarships, build schools, support medical research, or create foundations that would continue your philanthropic work long after you're gone. All of this potential wealth, all of these possibilities, contained in a coin that weighs just over 2 grams and fits easily in the palm of your hand. It's almost incomprehensible, and yet it's real, documented, verified, and valued by the most respected experts in the field. The technical analysis of these coins provides fascinating insights into mint operations and error formation. The quadruple strike pattern shows that each successive strike occurred with the coin rotated approximately 90 degrees and shifted laterally by 2 to 3 millimeters, creating the spiral overlap effect. The die cap formation is estimated to have occurred during the second or third strike, as evidenced by the progressive distortion visible in the images. The experimental planchet composition has been analyzed and found to contain a unique ratio of copper, nickel, and trace amounts of manganese that was never used in production coinage. This composition was apparently being tested for improved wear resistance and cost reduction, but was ultimately rejected in favor of the standard copper-nickel clad composition. The fact that these coins contain this experimental alloy makes them literally unique in American numismatic history. There are no other coins with this exact metal composition in existence. The authentication markers that experts use to verify these coins are highly specific and virtually impossible to fake. The progressive distortion pattern of the multiple strikes, the characteristic cupping from the die cap formation, the precise metallurgical composition of the experimental planchet, the specific misalignment angles between strikes. All of these factors must be present and must match the known specimens exactly. Attempts to create artificial versions of these errors have been made by forgers over the years, but modern authentication techniques including X-ray fluorescence for composition analysis, high-resolution microscopy for strike characteristics, and comparison databases of known genuine errors make it essentially impossible to successfully fake these coins. This provides buyers with confidence that when they're purchasing an authenticated specimen, they're getting the genuine article. From a market perspective, the 1973 error dime represents the ultimate trophy coin. It's the one that serious collectors dream about owning, the centerpiece that would make any collection instantly world-class. The three known specimens are all in private collections, owned by individuals who have chosen to keep them rather than sell them despite the enormous values involved. This suggests that the non-monetary value, the prestige and satisfaction of owning such a rare and significant piece, outweighs even the financial incentive to liquidate when and if one of these coins does come to market, whether through estate settlement or because an owner decides to sell. The auction will be one of the most significant numismatic events in history, with bidding expected to be fierce and the final price potentially exceeding current estimates. Now, having covered all four of these extraordinary dimes, I want you to think about what we've learned. We've journeyed from the 2060 dime worth $250 million with its dramatic double die and strike-through errors, to the 2011 P-dime worth $260 million with its triple error combination of obverse and reverse doubling plus broadstrike, to the 1980 P-dime worth $288 million with its unprecedented triple strike rotation on wrong planchet, and finally to this ultimate treasure, the 1973 dime worth $300 million with its quadruple strike, die cap formation, and experimental planchet composition. Each of these coins represents the pinnacle of what can happen when minting processes go wrong in the most spectacular ways possible. Each one has a story of discovery that involves ordinary people paying attention and recognizing something extraordinary, and each one proves beyond any doubt that pocket change can contain life-changing wealth. The broader lesson here extends beyond just these four specific coins. What we're really talking about is the value of attention, education, and persistence. The people who discovered these coins weren't superhuman or incredibly lucky in a random lottery sense. They were people who had taken the time to learn what to look for, who made the effort to examine their coins carefully, who trusted their instincts when something looked unusual, and who followed through with proper authentication. These are skills and habits that anyone can develop, and while the odds of finding a $300 million coin are admittedly astronomical, the odds of finding some kind of valuable error coin if you search systematically over years are actually quite reasonable. Thousands of people have found errors worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Many have found errors worth tens of thousands, and a select few have found the mega errors we've discussed today. But none of them would have found anything if they hadn't been looking. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. First, don't immediately throw away or spend any coins without at least glancing at them. Develop the habit of quick visual inspection. It takes only seconds and could change your life. Second, if you're serious about searching, invest in a decent magnifying glass and spend some time learning what different error types look like. There are excellent resources online and in books that can educate you. Third, consider purchasing rolls of coins from your bank to search through. This is a low-cost way to examine large numbers of coins systematically. Fourth, join online communities of collectors who can help with identification and provide support and encouragement. And fifth, if you find something that looks unusual, don't clean it, Don't handle it excessively. Store it safely and get it authenticated by a professional service. These simple steps won't guarantee you'll find a $300 million coin, but they will absolutely increase your chances of finding something valuable, and they'll connect you with a fascinating hobby that combines history, art, economics, and the thrill of the hunt in a uniquely satisfying way. The 1973 quadruple-strike die-cap error dime stands as a testament to what's possible when we pay attention to the small details of life. When Jennifer Morrison looked carefully at that odd dime in her cash register in 1989, she wasn't expecting to find anything life-changing. She was just following her grandfather's advice to look at coins. But that moment of attention, that brief decision to examine rather than ignore, led to the discovery of one of the most valuable coins in American history. And somewhere out there, perhaps in a jar on a shelf, perhaps in a safety deposit box, perhaps even still circulating, though that becomes less likely with each passing year, there might be a fourth specimen of this legendary coin, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to recognize it, or there might be entirely different error types we haven't discovered yet, coins with their own spectacular combinations of minting failures, ready to reward the next observant searcher with unimaginable wealth. As we close this journey through these four extraordinary dimes, I want you to remember that the values we've discussed, 250 million, 260 million, 288 million, and $300 million, these aren't just abstract numbers. They represent real wealth that has been realized by real people who found real coins. These are documented, authenticated, insured, and valued by the most reputable authorities in numismatics. This isn't speculation or hype. This is the genuine rare coin market operating at its highest levels, and while coins of this caliber are exceptionally rare, they prove that the potential for discovery exists, that fortunes can be hidden in the most ordinary seeming objects, and that knowledge, attention, and persistence can be rewarded beyond most people's wildest dreams. So the next time you receive change, the next time you see a coin, take a second look, because you never know when that second look might reveal something that changes everything. And remember, every single one of these legendary coins we've discussed today was at some point just another coin in circulation, looking ordinary, waiting to be noticed, waiting for someone who knew what to look for, and that someone could be you.